Hello everyone, welcome back. So in the previous video we had finished off the UI for a registration page, and now in this video we are actually going to create the navigation service that is going to allow us to navigate between the different pages of our applications, or you could also say the different screens. So with that out of the way, let's get going. So the way we're going to start off is that I'm going to just close the navigation and registration page, and I'll just keep the main.dart file open, and then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to our services folder and I'm going to create a new file, and I'll call this navigation service.dart. Inside of our navigation service.dart, we're going to define a class which is going to be responsible for our navigation, and I'm going to first import the material library, and I'm also going to import the Flutter's widgets package. And then once we have that, I'm going to create the class, and I'll call this class navigation service. Then this class is going to be fairly similar to all of the other classes that we have been creating, where we would have a static navigation service instance, navigation service instance, and this would be equal to our navigation service. Okay, so once we have the actual instance for our navigation service, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the constructor for our navigation service class. So I'll call this navigation service. And then with that, I'll leave it empty for now. Once we have that, I'm going to define a new key for our navigation service. And this key is going to be the key that is going to store the state of our navigator state. And what we're going to do is that we're going to have a global key of type navigator state, and then what we're going to do is that we are going to name our key navigator key, and I do not want this key to be only accessible inside of this class, so I won't make it private. And then what we're going to do is that every time a navigation service instance is created, we'll take our navigator key variable and we'll assign it a global key. And this global key is going to be of type navigator state. And this. Oh, and I forgot to remove these. And then once we have this, we can do command save. Okay, so now with this done, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create some functions that are going to be responsible for actually pushing pages or popping pages off of our actual stack. So the way navigation works inside of Flutter is you could think of it as a stack, and in a stack you'll have pages that would go on top of one another, and then you can pop and go back to a previous page, or you can just completely replace a page. That's also a possibility. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the first function, and this function is going to be a function which is going to return a future of type dynamic, and then we'll have a navigate to replacement. And what I'm going to do is that for this function we'll have a string which is going to be a route name that is going to come in, so we'll get the name of a route, and then we'll actually navigate to that route and we'll replace the already existing page with the new page of our route. So for example, if we go from our login page to a registration page, with navigate to replacement, we would totally replace our login page with our registration page, and we would not actually put our registration page on top of our login page. So then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to access the navigator key, which is going to store our navigator state, and then I'm going to access the current state, and then I'm going to use the function push replacement named, and then I'm just going to input the route name. Okay. Then I'm just going to copy this function, and then I'm going to paste it, and now I'm going to just name it as navigate to, and in navigate to we'll just push a route on top of an already existing route. So if we have our login page, we'll push registration page on top of our login page, and this way we could use a function which the navigator gives us, which is pop, and this way we could go back on in our navigator stack and we won't have to actually use a navigate to or navigate to replacement function. All we have to do would have to say that, oh, I want to go back, and then since we put our registration page on top of our login page, we would just go back to our login page. And in this case, we would still use the navigator key current state, but we would do dot push, and it would be push named. So we won't push a replacement, we would just add to the actual navigator stack. Okay, with that, I'm going to create another function, and this function is going to be a function which is going to take a material page route. So I'll use navigate to route. So we'll pass in a material page route. And this function will become more apparent in the later videos in other modules in our section. So I'll hold off explaining what this function does for now. And when the time comes, I'll explain to you what this function does. But basically, this function would take a route, and then instead of using the name to actually find what route it has to do, it's just going to use the route that gets passed in, and it's going to push that route onto the already existing page we have in our application. And then finally, we'll have another function which is going to return a boolean, and we'll have this be go back. And then this is going to return a navigator key dot current state dot and then it'll be pop. Yeah. And then that's pretty much it. With this, if our navigator stack has more than one children, then we'll be able to use the pop method to actually go back screens if the screens were actually navigated to using the push method and not the push replacements. So I'm going to do command save. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go back to our main.dart file. Then I'm going to import our service. So I'm going to do import dot slash services, and then our navigation service. Okay, so now once we have our navigation service, how are we going to link our navigation service to our material app? All we have to do for that is that to our material app, we're going to assign it a navigator key, and this navigator key is going to be our navigation service.instance.navigator key. And once we have that, we have successfully linked our navigation service to our material app, but we still haven't defined these actual routes or these route names. And for that, what we're going to do is that we are going to define the routes map, and this is a map that has the name of the route as a string, so the home route, and then a function that actually returns the page of when this route is called. So when we call and it's not going to be home, in this case it's going to be login. So when we have the login route, it's going to return the login page. And then when we have the actual register route, it's going to return the register page. So we'll have this function that is going to return a registration page. Then I'm going to update this to this. Our functions do get passed in a build context, so we have to add this to our functions. And with that, we have successfully defined the two routes we need for now to actually navigate through our application. So now finally, what we would have to do is replace our home completely, and then we would define an initial route option, and that is going to be login. And this is going to be the name of your route, so we'll just call it login, and we're going to do command save. Then what you will have to do is just reload your app completely, and the error should be removed. Okay, so now we have successfully implemented the actual navigation service inside of our app, but we're still not using it. And the way we're going to use is that I'm going to go to our login page first, and then I'm going to go to the top, and I'm going to import our /services/navigation service. Once we have our navigation service imported, I'm going to go down to our actual register button, and then on tap, what we're going to do is that we're going to take our navigation service, so navigation service.instance.navigate, and we're going to navigate to, we don't want to completely replace our login page with our registration page, because if we go there and want to come back, then all we would have to do is do the navigator's pop function, which we named go back in our navigation service, which is this function, and we would be able to go back, which I'll show you. So once we have this, we'll input the route name, and the route name, if you remember, was register, and I'll do this, and I'll do command save. So with that, now if I click on register, you're going to see that it takes us to our registration page, but the back button still doesn't work. So for that, what I'll have to do is that just close up our login page. We'll go to our registration page. I'm going to import our actual service, so /services.navigation service. I'm going to go down to where we have the actual back to login page button, And then inside of our onTap function, all we'll have to do is do our navigation service dot instance dot go back. And this would pop the topmost page inside of our navigator stack and go to the one below it. And now if we click the back button, it will take us back to the login page. So click on registration, takes us here, click on back, it takes us here. And now with this navigation service implemented, we'll be able to navigate between all of the different pages inside of our application by just importing our navigating service. And this is going to help us actually reduce the amount of code we have to write. Okay, so with that, we have successfully implemented the navigation service inside of our application. We are now successfully able to go from one page to another. And now in the next video, we are going to work towards actually getting up the logic up and running to actually get our user registered onto Firebase. So with that, I'm going to end my video here, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Peace.